Welcome back to the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I have once again been abandoned today, all by myself in some godforsaken country. While waiting to be rescued, let's go over the status of the Lord of the Rings or the Tolkien franchise since we've last covered it. The last thing we talked about was the War of the Rohirrim, this animated movie about a page in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King book specifically. And we did review it on this channel, and we said it was pretty bad, and we were not alone. It didn't really do well critically, and it was a box office failure. It was just not a great story around a made-up character no one cared about a plot, again, from a paragraph in the appendices, not supposed to be this epic story, epic 2.5-hour movie, had embarrassing references, and just all around not a good movie. But that was the last thing we covered. If you want more, we could watch our video, but what has happened since then? So this movie, like I said, this movie lost money, another embarrassment that people can't learn to leave well enough alone. But let's go back to the original embarrassing show, which is The Rings of Power. Now, in the end of season 2, I have not watched it, but I watch people who comment, or at least I keep tabs on it to see what embarrassing things they do in the show. And the season 2 finale ends with Sauron killing Celebrimbor, not in the War of the Elves and Sauron. And apparently he captures the 9 rings of power for men. The stranger, quote unquote, becomes Gandalf and he's talking to not Saruman. And during the third dies to the Balrog. It's all just incredibly embarrassing. You've seen people try to defend it saying it's faithful to the books. And it's gone to the point where it's incredibly hard to defend because the writers have made it explicitly clear they don't really care about the lore of the universe or the lore of the stories or even being faithful to the stories because they don't care about adapting anything faithfully. They can pay lip service and say we care about it, but actions speak louder than words, and their actions say we do not care one bit about what we're adapting. So, season 2 ended in 2024, and since TV shows like to take forever to come out now, the new season will be coming out later this year in 26, and we don't know too much about it yet, but we know that they have casted, or there's rumors that they have casted, Celeborn, who's supposed to be Galadriel's husband, and again, she's married at this point in time in the story, and she has a daughter who we will never see, because why would we see her? Didn't appear in the movie, so I don't think they really care to make it appear in the show. But there are some rumors that we've heard from the current season 3, and quite honestly, it's just getting more and more embarrassing. Celeborn has been potentially casted. Anarion has potentially been casted, who, for those of you who don't know, that's Isildur's brother. He's the king of Gondor when their father dies. And he's a much bigger character in the book, but he wasn't mentioned in the movies all that much, except for maybe one line from Denethor. But he's going to be cast, 2 seasons too late. And there's rumors of the Blue Wizards and maybe Saruman. It doesn't matter who they are, whoever they're adapting, it's just going to be embarrassing and unfaithful, because of course it is. Apparently this season's going to cover more of the War of Elves and Sauron fighting over or he's going to forge the One Ring and kill each other for the Elven rings. It's all out of order. Nothing's faithful to the story. Just all quite embarrassing. The other fun tidbit of news from this is that even though this is hemorrhaging money, they are still determined to film all 5 seasons. I wish one day I could have as much money as Amazon, just throw billions of dollars into the fire and watch this trash fire burn and not care one bit, but I'm not that rich. The one more embarrassing thing that I saw from season 3 is that there's going to be a good orc traveling with Galadriel. Granted, the image could be fake in the days of AI now, but I have no idea why they'd want to have a good orc traveling with Galadriel, and I think I don't know the character's name, but he's the elf that was crying when you had to cut down a tree. Pretty pathetic stuff, and they're going to be traveling with a good orc, quote unquote. Just more melodrama and a humanization of the orcs. It's not really necessary. Showing them crying or having them travel with the main characters. Why would Galadriel, one of the greatest elves ever, according to the show, want to travel with some measly orc? Some people might say, oh, the show will give you a reason. They will never give you a reason. You'll watch the entire season wondering why they're traveling together, what's the big reveal going to be, and it's going to be nothing. It's just going to be another disappointment, some dumb mystery box that's not satisfying to watch. I remember they tried to set up the stranger and they were saying, we don't know who he is, he could be anybody. And of course it was Gandalf. Anybody with a modicum of intelligence could figure out that was Gandalf, and it's going to be a very unsatisfying character story, and of course it was. These people are just very untalented hacks who are desecrating the works of a much smarter man to try to make money and build some sort of career in Hollywood. And when this is all over, their career is going to be done and doing some TV slop or making commercials. But enough about the embarrassing Rings of Power. So we have mentioned before and poked fun that they're making a Hunt for Gollum movie. Another movie they want to make about several sentences or a paragraph or two in the appendices for the Lord of the Rings Return to the King book. Now, they've mentioned that they want to bring back some of the original cast, but it seems unlikely. Ian McKellen wants to come back as Gandalf. I can't imagine they want an 80-plus-year-old old man being Gandalf again in a movie. He could. You could put makeup and deepfake and whatever tools you want to do to put him in the movie. I don't really see the point. Apparently, the actor for Aragorn's not going to come back. Again, I don't really see what the big deal is. One, they should make the movie, but people seem to think that he's the only person that ever could play Aragorn, and I never really felt that way about characters and actors. It's not really a actor-specific character. The character existed decades before he ever played the part. People will come after him and play the part probably better, so that's not really a concern of mine. The bigger concern is why are they making this movie to begin with, based on a few sentences in the appendices. They've casted the girl from Titanic, Kate Winslet, to be the quote-unquote female lead. Your guess is as good as mine as to who she's playing because she's obviously not playing any real character in the story. Your guess is as good as mine as to who she's playing because I will put money on it right now that she's not playing any single character from the book. They will try hard to justify why she is who she is, but it's just going to be embarrassing. And there were talks about this being a two-parter or maybe even a trilogy. And it just gets to the point where every single production is becoming embarrassing how much they're trying to scrape and desecrate this franchise to scrape any dollar they can off of it. At this point, I don't know why they don't just remake the movies at this point. If they're so desperate for money, why scrape off the little stories they can from the appendices and make embarrassing projects that lose tons and tons of money? You're better off just remaking the movies at this point. You're more likely to make a profit. Yeah, people will be upset, but it's more likely to put butts in seats as opposed to a Hunt for Gollum movie. No one wants to see the War of the Rohirrim. No one wants to see the Hunt for Gollum. We already know what happens. They found him, and then he escapes. We see most of that in the trilogy already. It's mentioned in passing because it's not an interesting story. It happens, and that's it. So how they're going to make a movie or 2 movies or 3 movies or whatever the number they're planning, I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine, but we can put money on the fact that it's going to be a cash grab and an embarrassing product with everyone involved being embarrassed about what they've done. I know they've said some of the actors want to come back for the role because they feel attached to it, and I get it. The original trilogy was a great work. It's a masterpiece to most people. It won tons of awards. It's still loved to this day. In fact, this very year is the 25th anniversary of The Fellowship releasing in theaters in December. But just because one movie was good doesn't mean the other movies attached to it are going to be good. Just because you have the guy who played Gollum directing it doesn't mean it's going to be good. Just because you have Peter Jackson attached doesn't mean it's going to be good. He can throw his name onto anything. That means absolutely nothing to me and should mean absolutely nothing to you because he is not the original author. He just adapted the stories, and if you give him free reign from what we've seen from the Hobbit movies, his judgment is not always the best. I know there were production issues that also plague those movies, but he's also part of the problem. Or he's also part of the cause for those production issues, so a lot of blame does go on him as well. I think the only actor confirmed returning for The Hunt for Gollum is Andy Serkis, who's also the director. Again, I don't see how that's supposed to be a big draw. Yeah, he revolutionized mocap, but I'm not an actor. I care more about the story than I care about some actor trying to play his favorite character from 25 years ago. But this last bit of news comes to us on the day the One Ring is supposed to be destroyed in Lord of the Rings, March 25th. Ironic that the day the great object of evil is supposed to be destroyed, we get some unfunny TV host man number 4 who's about to lose his job and wants to torture us Tolkien fans by writing this weird prequel sequel to The Lord of the Rings. And I say prequel sequel because when Peter Jackson adapted the Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship, he cut out some specific chapters about the book about Frodo and their journey to Rivendell. There's a bunch of chapters he cut out, like meeting with Tom Bombadil, Old Man Willow, the fog on the Barrow Downs. It just shows that even getting to Rivendell was a perilous journey, even before they met Aragorn. And even the little synopsis they published about him doing the movie where the journey was almost lost early on or the heroes are almost lost early on in the journey. That is true, but I can't imagine why they'd make a movie out of this. Again, like all the other productions, it just reeks of desperation and a desperate cash grab, trying to scrape any money they can off this property before they eventually have to remake them. Because in the little synopsis, they mention that 14 years after Frodo passes on to the Grey Havens to live out the rest of his life, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, and Samwise's daughter, Eleanor, so I guess she's 14 years old, retrace the first steps of their adventure, and I guess that's going to be them uncovering the hidden story. I guess they'll de-age some of these characters to see what happened when they met Tom Bombadil and the Barrow-wights. That's something I can imagine based on their brief synopsis, but I just can't imagine why we're developing this. Why do you have Unfunny Man number 4 working on this? I know he's going to be jobless soon, but just because he's going to be jobless doesn't mean you have to give out work to him of all people. I don't think this movie needs to be made. Like most fans, you wish those chapters were included in the original movies, but I understand from a design decision to cut those specific chapters out because you want to focus on the more exciting stuff with the Fellowship, and those chapters at the end of the day aren't going to change all that much in the grand scheme of the books. They do affect the story, but in terms of trying to make a 3-hour movie product, that I can understand why they cut it. But like I mentioned before with Peter Jackson, they seem to think if they can trot him out there, it almost gives a seal of approval or seal of quality. And I mentioned before, I don't know why this man is given some sort of authority when it comes to Tolkien adaptations. Yes, he did a good job for the trilogy, but he did the best job for The Hobbit, and he's not the original author. He's just adapting these stories. If he had a perfect track record, like he adapted 9 different movies and they were all considered great by the fans and critics alike, I could see why people would be more likely to defer to him, but he's currently batting 500 when it comes to the movies he's directed, and it's even less when you consider the stuff he attaches his name to. So his batting percentage keeps dropping every single time he puts his name out there. So, and if you think about what we've done for me lately, it's even worse. So I don't know why people seem to want to use him. Maybe the less intelligent fans are more likely to clap when they see his name attached to something. Well, his name's attached, so it must be good. It's using actors from the original trilogy, so it must be good. They're just actors. Actors don't really indicate much in terms of quality. It's more about the story and the people who are adapting it, whether they want to be faithful or not. If they want to be like the people who Rings of Power and being incredibly unfaithful while also being two-faced when they talk about it. I, for one, am someone who's not going to be two-faced. When you watch these things, you know that the people who are adapting it don't care. They're just looking to make a buck off it and call it a day. They aren't really, they can say they're fans, they can say they love the stories, but if they did, they would realize that what they're doing is contradictory to what Tolkien believed and what the stories are supposed to tell. Because I do get annoyed when you watch people who claim to be Tolkien fans and will in turn shill for these videos because money is attached to YouTube, and if their YouTube videos are doing well, they're making more money, and if they want to make money, they should be play nice with Amazon or whoever's making these movies and give positive coverage, positive news to it so they can get more views, and they're financially attached to it, so they're a bit more compromised when it comes to reporting on or giving their opinion on the product. They can be incredibly honest and give you a more unsanitized view of how most Tolkien fans will view these things. I know this isn't some sort of in-depth review, just going over news related to Lord of the Rings because I don't like the fact that it's becoming like Star Wars or like Marvel where they want to pump out slop year after year after year and turn it into some more commercial product. This really isn't that kind of story to commercialize and make that much money off of. The Lord of the Rings is one of the most These books are some of the most widely printed and read books in the world for decades. I think it's second behind the Bible in terms of how many books are printed or bought every single year. These are incredibly popular stories that are a little more deeper than something like Star Wars. Star Wars is incredibly shallow. It's just entertainment. Marvel movies are just entertainment. It's not meant to be anything that deep. Most TV and movies aren't that deep. They're not meant to be something you watch for an hour and you stop thinking about for the rest of the day until you come back next week because it's entertaining enough. These stories are a little bit deeper. It's been popular for decades. It speaks to us on a deeper level. These are considered classical books that we will read, your children will read, their grandchildren will read, and so on and so forth for decades, for centuries. It's on the tiers of Shakespeare and Paradise Lost and Dante's Inferno, great classical works that people will reference and read for centuries to come. Star Wars is not that. If you want to make Star Wars into some commercial slop, you can. They've been running to the ground for over a decade now, thanks to Kathleen Kennedy, but it's not like it was ever some hire to begin with, even when George Lucas was working on it. Same thing with Marvel. Comic books are fun, but they're not, at the end of the day, anything life-changing. Releasing tons of TV shows and tons of movies, it's kind of expected. You expect higher quality like we had pre-Endgame, but it is what it is. Lord of the Rings isn't supposed to be like this. We're not supposed to be getting tons of TV shows and movies year after year after year. You kind of dilute the main story and turn it into some sort of commercial product that it's not. Like I said, you don't really have a cinematic universe for Dante's Inferno and having tons of made-up stories. Granted, it is kind of like fan fiction, but the point is that it's a higher level of stories that we read, and it's not meant to be a commercial product. And seeing like this does irk me a bit, which is why I feel like I'm a little harsher than normal. But the one positive thing to come out from all this is that they'll never be able to take the stories away from you. Those books, like I said, will still be read for centuries after us. They'll never be able to change them. They can never undo them. The stories will be there forever. The books will always be there, so they can never change it. Those stories will always exist. It's just unfortunate they have to taint those stories with these awful adaptations, which hopefully will be forgotten over the next couple of decades, and nobody will remember Rings of Power, or The War of the Rohirrim, or The Hunt for Gollum, or whatever they're calling this new one with, The Shadows of the Past, or whatever it's called. You'll hopefully see more as like a weird curiosity. They're throwing money and burning all this money trying to copy the success of the original trilogy books, but never become close to replicating it. Like, for those of you who read the books, do not despair. Eventually, these adaptations will come and pass, and they'll never be able to sully the original stories. Eventually, we will get good entertainment. I know it seems like it's decades away, but eventually it'll happen. Tides will eventually turn. They realize burning money and making these awful products, not just Lord of the Rings, but other adaptations as well, is not going to be a fruitful adventure for them. Eventually, we'll want to make money at some point. So eventually, don't despair. We'll get good. Things will turn around eventually. They have to, right? They can't get worse forever. With all that being said, essentially, don't watch any of the new Lord of the Rings slop, and you'll be much happier for it. This has been the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion has been biased, except ours, and we will see you next time.